Jeff Glattstein is known as the energy medicine man. He's a shaman and an energy healer and the co-founder of the East Institute. We have a fantastic conversation about energy, about healing, his whole story, and then, of course, more about plant medicine. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed talking to the energy medicine man, Jeff. Tell me about your life before you were a modern medicine man.
Yeah. So, I get this question all the time, like,
Do you?
What did you do and how did you end up kind of doing what you do? And I always start the story from when I was a kid, so I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My parents moved the family to Atlanta when I was a year old. So I was raised here, but we would go back and forth to see the family. And being down here at that time in Georgia, there really wasn't a lot to do. It was basically you went to school, right? Maybe played sports. We moved around a lot, so I was kind of always the new kid. And I found that I was very drawn to being outdoors. And from the time I was very young, I was always in the forest around the creeks and streams and rivers. And I had this very strong connection to nature. And that was, in a sense, that was like my temple, and my friends, were the animals and the trees and the rivers and the streams. And I was this very adventurous little kid, As I got a little older and moving around quite a bit, I became very attracted to Eastern practices and philosophies when I was about 9 years old. I didn't really have a strong religious identity.
Okay.
So I was kind of in a Jewish, family.
Right.
In the deep South in the 60s and 70s, right. Surrounded by a lot of Baptists and Protestants, right?
Right.
And I was not ever really, practicing, with the religion of my heritage. So I began to read religious texts. I read, the Bible, I read the Torah, I read the Quran. I became very attracted to Eastern philosophies, and I began studying different forms of martial arts at a fairly young age.
Okay.
And that's how I kind of got into the whole energy side of things, because, once we get past the physical aspects of the arts, it truly is all about understanding how to cultivate one's energy and how to direct that energy. In my teens, got into read a lot of spiritual books, got into meditation, mindfulness, astral projection, anything dealing with spirituality was like fascinating to me.
Right. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, as I continued to grow and went to school, when I went to college, I always loved science. Nature and science was kind of my thing. So I studied biology and chemistry. And then I stayed to further study physics and mathematics. So my educational background was kind of that left brain science math geek who loved being outdoors, right? And then I had kind of this interesting sort of martial arts background, and it was with Tai Chi and Kung Fu primarily, very energetically based. And then from there, I spent some years just kind of banging around. I ran a scuba diving charter down in the Keys.
Nice. All right.
I became an instructor and taught scuba lessons. And then I came back to Atlanta and decided to step into the technology world. And this was pre-internet. Okay. So that really satisfied kind of that technology thirst, that I had. And once I stepped into that, I found that I was very good at it. And I worked for large corporate for about 6 years, and then I started my own business, stepped into kind of that conforming lifestyle, got married, had kids, big house, started my own business. It took off. We did really well. And then life started throwing some interesting curves. Okay.
Right. Right.
I had a condition with my neck, and I went in and had spinal surgery for my neck. And then a couple of years later, my lumbars. All right. So, I mean, physically, I was in good shape, but anatomically, what was happening was I was starting to have these spinal related conditions. And, you know, the doctors, they either prescribe or they operate. Right. So I went through that whole process. I searched for a lot of holistic, you know, treatments. While I was recovering from my lumbar surgery, my father passed away unexpectedly. And then 2 years after that, my mother passed away unexpectedly.
Wow. Okay.
So I was kind of dealing with a lot of physical, you know, a lot of emotional things going on. And right after that, I got very sick. I got very sick.
Okay.
And the doctors couldn't really diagnose what I had. So, you know, they had me on all types of medications and doing all types of treatments. Now, while that was going on, that conforming life that I had was starting to disintegrate.
Fall apart. Yeah. So inside and outside is falling apart.
Everything was falling apart. Okay. I was kind of in a very dark place for a few years. My marriage, you know, ended. What I knew as a family unit, you know, had changed. Wasn't in the business space because I couldn't work. I was unhealthy. And I remember one morning, kind of in a moment of clarity, I had been living in this like drug-induced haze for about 3 years. And the doctors had given me fairly dire, you know, prognosis. They gave me a short time to live. And I heard this voice that said, "Heal yourself." And yeah, I'll never forget. I was laying on the couch. I was so weak I couldn't climb a flight of steps to go to the bedroom. So I would sleep on the couch, and I heard this voice. And that day I stopped taking the medications. I stopped seeing the allopathic doctors. I went back to the things that I had learned many years earlier about cultivating my energy. I started eating a very clean diet, going outside, working with earth energy, working with other energies. And that morning, I was about 248 pounds, bald, very weak, you know, in very poor physical condition. And I also started exercising very slowly. You know, I remember the first time I did, I could get on a stationary bicycle for 5 minutes, and that was it. Well, 8 months later, I went back to my doctor, and he walked into and I looked pretty much like this, right? And he walked into the examination room, and he said, "Oh, excuse me, sir, I'm in the wrong room." He didn't even recognize
you, right?
So he came back in, and he was like, "Oh my God, like, I thought you were dead. Like, where did you go? What did you do? What did you take?" And I shared with him that as I stepped onto this path, about a month into it, I met this man who was a medicine man, who was a shaman. I didn't even know what a shaman was. All right. Now I'm talking about like this was a couple of decades ago.
Okay? Right, of course. Yeah.
And I started doing some work with him around energy. And then that led me, you know, marriage had fallen apart. So it was just me. And that led me into really learning about energy medicine, energy work. And again, my left brain curiosity kicked in. So I had to know everything, right? And from there, I went back to the East and studied in a monastery for a period of time, actually 2 of them, and learned about ancient and traditional healing modalities, traditional Chinese medicine, medical qigong, Taoist Neidan. And then from there, my travels took me to, let's see, Tibet, Mongolia, Siberia, Peru, where I was immersed in shamanic healing and worked with and learned from a number of different shamanic elders in those different areas. And then I came back to the United States and I studied integrative energy medicine, intuitive medicine, hypnotherapy, energy psychology. I picked up a Reiki master,
right, along the way, right?
Along the way.
Yeah,
I got that after I had learned all the other stuff. So it was like, okay, this is like kind of, passive, right?
Right.
And honestly, Kelly, I never had any intentions of doing this work for anybody other than myself.
Right.
To heal myself, because I'd gone through this massive life change to where, I had been successful in business and money was not an issue. And, the big house and wife and 2 kids and, everything was, and I was healthy. And then all of that just, kind of went away, like layer by layer. And I share with people that whenever we go through a big transformation where it seems like everything in our life is deconstructing, and it's very purposeful. And it's through that deconstruction that we can actually remember our true purpose in life. Okay. And I'll never forget, I was living I was bouncing between Southern Cal and Northern Cal. And I was staying in an Airbnb. This was, again, many, many years ago. And I was staying with this man and his wife. And she had an issue with her shoulder. She couldn't raise her arm. She had frozen shoulder syndrome. And I had studied for years and years and years, but never stepped into practice. And her husband asked me if I could work on her. He saw the books that I had in my room. And I said, sure. So I worked on her for a short period of time. And the next morning he came and got me. And we walked out back and she was in a full downward facing dog. Right? Whereas for about a year and a half, she couldn't raise her arm. Right. So that's what kind of led me into doing this work. Right. Okay.
Helping other people. Okay. Yeah.
And when I went to college, I had designs on becoming a doctor. That's why I studied the sciences.
Right.
Yeah. And little did I know that many years later I would be, but just not in the allopathic sense. Right.
Isn't life amazing that way?
It really is. It really is. And
you can't make this stuff up. Like,
no, when I look back, when I look back, everything that I perceived as like, oh my gosh, this is
the end of the world,
really hard and challenging, or this is bad or terrible, right? It was quite the opposite. Yeah, it was challenging, but it set me up to do what I'm truly meant to do, which is to work with people, to help them heal at very deep levels. And to do that by combining a fusion of energy medicine and shamanic healing, which does include working with plant medicines. In the shamanic world, plant medicines are very common. Even in the non-traditional, what I call the traditional medicine world, not the conventional, which is the allopathic, but the traditional medicine world, for thousands and thousands of years, plants have been the source of healing. Right. Mother Earth's children, right, help heal us. Right. And what what I'm very happy to see is that people are now beginning to embrace more natural forms of healing. Right? Yes. Okay.
Well, whether because it's diet, because it hasn't worked the other way, and so now people are like, right. And along with that, there comes this spiritual awakening that happens. Right. Yes. And I share with people all the time that there are many beautiful modalities to kind of step into a person's, what I call their healing path. Yes. Right. Okay. Whether it's yoga, or whether it's diet, or whether it's meditation, or whether it's energy work, or whatever it is. Yes. Those are all doorways onto the same path. Correct. Yes. Okay. Well, that path leads to one place, which is where the deepest form of healing occurs, and that's the soul. Right. Okay. So we can practice energy medicine or teach yoga or do shamanic healing, but and we can really help people and help ourselves get better, feel better, have a better life. But until we really start doing
the work in the landscape of the soul, the karmic healing, the soul-based wounds, the ancestral healing,
Yes.
right? Okay, that's where our healing really becomes complete.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I'm totally on board with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of an abbreviated version of my path. I have dozens and dozens and dozens of stories about my experiences that maybe one day I'll write in a form to share with people.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that something that I see and something that I teach people is that when we're facing a really challenging time in our life, okay, it's very purposeful. We have to pay attention to and ask the question, like, what are the lessons I have the opportunity to learn here?
Right.
What are the wounds I have? Many people carry a lot of psycho-emotional dynamics, right? From the time we're little, we get conditioned first by our parents, and then by school, and then by religion, and then by institutions and government to fit into this box. Now, I know my illness that the doctors, said was terminal. That's not what it was. But my illness came from an energetic imbalance that was created from a combination of the psycho-emotional imbalances I had, a lot of trauma I experienced early in life, losing my parents and not grieving, as an example, okay? Being bullied, most of my life and having to bottle up all of that anger and resentment, okay? And then kind of add to that the ancestral dynamics that I came into this life with on both my mother and my father's, side, okay? And excuse me, and it's no wonder I got sick, right? I was carrying all of these energies that were creating imbalances. And when any illness, any injury, at the root of that is some type of energetic imbalance. And most people carry a lot of psycho-emotional, energies, whether it's, trauma, anxiety, depression, compulsive conditions like addiction or ADD or OCD or, number of others, right? And it's important for us to step into kind of healing those psycho-emotional conditions, so we can then step into healing at the psycho-spiritual level, the soul, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think when people are not, so along your journey, how has the soul, or what we think of as the soul, kind of changed for you? Or did it? Were you, has it changed?
Well, the short answer is yes, it has changed because my soul has healed.
Right.
Okay. Now, our soul is this amazing spirit energy that embodies in physical form, right? Okay. And we come in with the collective experience of many alternate lifetimes.
Right.
All right. And you hear the expression, oh, you're an old soul. Right. Well, yeah, I'm not only an old soul, I'm an old soul that got the crap beat out of it. Right. Many times. Yeah. So we carry these soul-based dynamics.
Yes.
And that we come into this life with. And then in addition to that, we actually create more soul-based dynamics through our experiences.
Right.
Okay. And we have an opportunity to reach a karmic balance, for example, with another person that's in our life. We have an opportunity to heal soul-based dynamics that we came in with. Okay. And we also have this interesting opportunity to heal our ancestors. So, for example, I have a son, right? I had a conversation with him a couple of days ago, and we were talking, and I said to him, listen, I've done the ancestral healing, okay? So you don't have to. So you're kind of clear, to live your life and to create your life without carrying all of these ancestral dynamics. So when we heal those dynamics within ourselves, we heal the ancestors back and forward.
Right? 7 years forward, 7 generations forward, 7 generations back. Is that what the Native Americans? Yeah.
That's the Native American. There are other beliefs that it keeps going.
Right. That there's that's limitless.
That's right. That's right. So when when I ask, like, how has my soul changed? Well,
Yeah.
it's gotten healthier,
Yes.
right? A lot of the soul-based work that I've done to heal like my soul dynamics.
Mhm.
Once I reached this place of, let's just call it clarity with my soul, okay? A couple of really amazing things happened. One, life just lined up in a way to where I live my purpose. I wake up every morning and I do something that I love. I help people every day, okay? And it feels amazing to do that, right? Now it's still work, we all work. So I'm still putting out energy and I get tired like other people,
Yeah.
do. Okay.
Yeah.
But to be able to step into that purpose, as unconventional as it is, right? Remember, I went from being the CEO of a tech company to being a shaman. and the transition that happened with that, it was kind of step by step. But once we remember our truth, we remember our purpose, okay? We can then step into that. And when we do authentically, life is amazing. The other thing that happened with me is that I actually met the other half of my soul,
Right.
right?
Yes, your twin flame.
My twin flame. And, everyone loves to romanticize the twin flames, but they call it flames for a reason.
Right.
Okay. And when that occurred, I went through another deconstruction, and so did she, where everything in life that was not in alignment with our purpose,
Yes.
the purpose of us kind of helping each other heal those final, dynamics, and to step into our authentic purpose of being here and ascend, and kind of reunite in a way. That occurred, and believe me, it was challenging, for both of us, because whatever's left, whatever work you've done, okay, there's more. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. And the story, around us coming together.
Yeah.
And I always share with people, be careful what you ask for with twin flames. It's rare to meet your flame. Okay. It's even more rare to actually have a relationship with them. And the rarest is when they actually stay together, because what that entails is just a complete change in life,
right?
A deconstruction of life,
yes.
A reconstruction step by step of a completely different life, right? And a lot of people would love to have that, but the fear that kicks in along the way,
and the disorientation. I mean, for me, I always say, who wouldn't raise their hand to say, oh, I live with my twin flame, or I want pure freedom? But when you have real freedom, it's very disorienting, because all of the things that you have come to know, titles, jobs, things, can go away. Not all of it does necessarily, but there's a deconstruction. Absolutely. And a reconstruction, and it can be my experiences has been quite painful. You cling, like, especially if you cling.
Well, you're right. It's scary.
Yeah.
Right. It's scary. It's confusing.
Yeah.
Disorienting. Yeah. Can absolutely be painful. All of those things that we're taught through our conditioning in life.
Right.
Okay. Have to be challenged. That belief system that lives in our subconscious mind that we're not even consciously in tune with, right? Has to be challenged. Okay. And to ask the question, like, what are my beliefs? Okay. Very simple question, very difficult answer, right? And I remember, when I was kind of going through that soul transition, right? It's like, why am I here?
Yes.
What am I meant to do?
Yes.
And I was guided back to really diving into understanding, like, what are my beliefs? Because I didn't even know at that point in time. Life had fallen apart as I knew it in every way. I found myself almost homeless and penniless. Okay.
Mhm.
And family was gone, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm asking these questions, right?
Yeah.
And when I started to really dive in and excavate, like, what are my beliefs,
Mhm.
Jeff's beliefs?
Right.
Okay. This amazing process came to me because, again, I tend to have that left brain, thing going on, right? So I started asking, like, what are my beliefs about the physical world and my body and money energy, because that affects our physical world, materialism, right? What
Right.
are those?
Right.
And what are my beliefs about emotions, lower emotions and higher emotions? And
Mhm.
what are my beliefs about thoughts and intellect and information? And what are my beliefs about religion and spirituality, right?
Mhm.
And I literally made this amazing list of bullets. And I went through and I started reading them, and I realized beliefs that I had been given from the time I was very young, or, from the conditioning that I had received, throughout my life.
Yes.
So what I did was I hand wrote them. And what I did was I took my pen and I crossed off the ones that didn't feel right to me.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I was left with a list of beliefs that felt in alignment.
Mhm.
And then I asked, okay, well, what beliefs do I want to have that aren't on that list? And I wrote those down. And that became my new belief system.
Mhm.
Okay? And it's our
Mhm.
beliefs that generate our thoughts.
Right.
And our
Sure.
thoughts generate our words and actions and habits. And that becomes our reality.
Right.
See?
Right.
So when we go back to kind of modifying the belief system, it's an amazing, process. Now, I did that at a time where I was not working with plant medicine personally,
Mhm.
and it took a long time to kind of make that shift, right? And when I began working with plant medicines,
Mhm.
psychoactive plant medicines,
Right.
the acceleration that occurred
Right.
was just incredible. It
Mhm.
literally takes years of work and shrinks it down into a matter of months,
Right. Right.
because the plant medicines, along with the right preparation and the right kind of integration work,
Mhm.
okay, literally repatterns our neural pathways.
Right.
Okay, and it's over the neural pathways that our
Mhm.
thoughts occur. And neural pathways, are nothing more than electrical or chemical energy.
Mhm.
So when we work with these plant medicines that allow us to change
Mhm.
our neural constructs, we can literally change how we think.
Right.
We can literally change our belief system, in a way that allows us to consciously create alignment for ourselves in life.
Yes. Yeah. And I think of like energy work, in my experience, having energy work done is so efficient, very quick. And so plant medicine seems to take it even further from the research I've done, is just
It
unbelievably
does. It does. So think
quick.
about this, Kelly.
Yeah.
If you come in to see me
Yeah.
and you say I have a treatment table,
Yeah. Back
behind me
there.
right here. Okay,
Yeah.
right. So if you come in to see me and we're doing some work and I'm helping your energy move. Okay, like helping energies that are constrictive or distorted kind
Yeah.
of move, and helping other energies come in. Right.
Right.
You're going to get off the table and you're going to go, wow, I feel so much better.
Right.
Okay. If you go back into your life and you do the same things that you were doing, you're just going to create more of those energies, right?
Right.
And then you're going to come back next week to see me,
And
you
need
know.
it again. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So when we combine the energy work
Mhm.
with, doing these fundamental shifts, in our neural anatomy, our beliefs, our thoughts, we
Mhm.
generate significantly different energies in our life.
Right.
Now, add to that meditation,
Yeah.
diet,
Diet.
exercise,
Getting in
okay?
nature. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Getting out in nature, grounding, being with the energy of the earth is one of the most powerful healing energies, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And you combine, and when we combine these things over a fairly short period of time, we can see lifelong sustainable changes.
Right. Which is just so
Right?
exciting. Like I get goosebumps because
Oh, it's amazing.
it's amazing.
I call that the 1 year upgrade. Okay. And the reason I call it that is that um, the human body replicates every cell at least once a year.
Right. That's true.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're basically growing an entirely new body
Yeah.
once a year, if we start today and we do something different,
Mm-hmm.
right, today for an entire year, it's going to affect our physiology, because that energetic condition, that change in the energetic condition allows our body to heal naturally.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So assuming that our body grows, replicates every cell once a year, if we begin to do work physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically, they're all energetic, right? Energetically.
Right.
And we do something different every single day, different diet with Mother Earth, doing energy work, mindfulness and meditation, vibrational therapy, right? Maybe plant medicine, shamanic healing, to work on the psycho-spiritual, aspects.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in 1 year is life-changing.
Yes. And so
Truly
when
life-changing.
and with plant medicine, so I feel like I've been guided we need to talk a little more about guided life too, because that's interesting. I think it was Miss Tweedy, who was a particular Sufi, that once said that a spiritual life, a good spiritual life, is a guided life. And so being guided, you may be guided to things that don't make sense to you. So you have to, that's a piece of it. But also this, I feel like I've been guided to the meat. So I got the meat medicine, but the plant medicine is also really powerful and amazing. So when you're talking about plant medicine, I know you use the actual real mushrooms.
Yeah, the plants, mushrooms or the plants, right.
Which is fungi, but other plants too are there, or are you mostly talking about mushrooms?
There are a number of them.
Okay.
So what I've been working with predominantly has been with psilocybin mushrooms.
Right.
Okay. Now I also do work with other very powerful psychoactive plant medicines like ayahuasca,
right,
and others. Okay. One of the reasons that I was called to really step in with the fungi is that if you look at what's happening in allopathic medicine right now, okay, there are research studies that have been done, ongoing research studies. Decriminalization has begun with psilocybin in about 14 cities, and I think legislation is proposed in about 28 others. Right. And the reason is that the psychological and psychiatric community realizes that psilocybin can accelerate the results of traditional cognitive behavioral therapy and transpersonal psychology.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So that approach, all right, there were studies done, and there are certain protocols that have been developed initially by Johns Hopkins and a few other, research universities, right?
Yes.
Medical universities. And what they've done is they've created a protocol to use psilocybin, which is synthetic, which is derived in a lab, in a clinical setting to help do what's referred to as psilocybin assisted psychotherapy.
Right.
And that extends to psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, because there are other, what I refer to as pharmaceuticals, right? Synthetics,
right,
that can also be applied. MDMA, LSD, ketamine, psilocybin, those are, and DMT, those are kind of the five, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I think that can be amazingly helpful for people as an entry point into working with psychoactives to help heal their psycho-emotional dynamics.
Right.
And the research is showing that it's very helpful for depression, anxiety, trauma, addiction, okay, migraine and cluster headaches, pain management, end of life demoralization, a number of things.
Right.
All right. So I think it's great that the conventional allopathic medical community is doing that.
Yes.
Like, thank you for spending all the money. Thank you for doing the research and making it scientific. Okay. They're figuring out what we've known for a very long time. And what the fundamental difference in doing it in more of a traditional and ceremonial and natural way.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Well, the traditional ceremonial has a lot to do with setting. Okay.
Yes.
It has a lot to do with the sounds and the vibrations and and kind of that ceremonial, that sacramental, approach. All
Yes.
right. And then by using the natural form, what comes out of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we know that has a spirit, a
right.
consciousness, and an intelligence,
a wisdom. Yeah.
a wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These mushrooms have been on this planet for over 800 million years, maybe longer.
Right.
Okay. There's a belief in many circles that psychoactive plants, mushrooms, fungi,
right.
plants helped shape and develop the human brain. Okay.
Okay.
If you think about the inflection points 2.5 million years ago, we were these little hominids running around. Okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, brain size tripled.
Right.
And then about 40, 50,000 years ago, something occurred where the brain changed again, and it's referred to as the creative explosion, right? Where creativity and these higher brain functions,
right,
just all of a sudden appeared. And it also coincides with the migratory patterns of hominids, primates, pre Homo sapien, like our ancestors.
Right.
Okay. Take into consideration, you can read in many religious texts, Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, Judaism. There are mentions of, these elixirs, these teas, like in the Vedic and Hindu traditions, soma, in the Greek tradition, ambrosia.
Right.
Right. Okay. They were all mushroom-based brews.
Right.
Okay. All right. So spirituality and religious development is also directly linked and attributable to the consumption of these, what in Mexico is referred to as flesh of the gods.
Right.
Right. Okay. So plants have this amazing intelligence and power, and when we compare kind of side by side that clinical synthetic approach and the natural traditional approach, well, I tell people in the medical community, hey, you guys are on the right track, but you haven't quite cracked the code yet. And I actually had a doctor from a medical university come see me with he's going to do a clinical research study. And he's like, I want you to review this and tell me, like, what else should we be considering, right? So we had a discussion, and I said, why don't we sit and talk, and I'll sort of show you what the traditional approach looks like and why it works scientifically. And he walked away saying, this is great, I'm changing my protocol. Right. It makes perfect sense, right? So what has been traditional for tens of thousands of years is now being backed up by scientific research results in the scientific community. It's quite beautiful to see. It's exciting.
It is exciting. I think it is an exciting time, but I also feel like people are more open,
much more open, sure.
Which is really nice. But there's also something really powerful about ceremony. And I think people are starting to we've tried the just take the pill, and some of those have been helpful, and that's great. And the synthetics, I'm glad that exists for people. But the ceremony of it, I think, is really important in our healing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about what that really means.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
All right. So first point of reference is somebody goes in for ketamine assisted psychotherapy or psilocybin assisted psychotherapy. I had a man who went to Johns Hopkins and did their protocol, and it was helpful to him. Right.
Sure.
And then he wanted to do some work. He wanted to do some work with me. All right. And I said, look, this is very different. It's very different than being with the medicine recreationally. Like if you're going to a concert or socially, it's very different than a clinical setting. And what you're going to experience is a fusion of at least 6 different modalities. Okay. In what I refer to as a sacred container.
Right.
Okay. And the energy inside that container has everything to do with a person's experience. The guidance that they receive before and during and after has everything to do with the experience. So imagine being in a very warm, safe space that has a very powerful, supportive energy. And then you bring in these amazing music and sounds and instruments, bells, rattles, drums, different types of, to evoke different responses. Okay?
Right.
It is a very different experience than going to a doctor's office, taking a pill or getting a drip, putting on some headphones. Sometimes the doctor leaves, sometimes they stay. We've heard about both. It's a very different experience. And the 7th medicine that happens in there is the person who's guided. Right. To hold the space, to cultivate the energy, to guide the person, through their journey. And this is why we teach. This is why we teach this.
Yes,
because there are ways people can experience this, in a very safe, responsible, and highly effective way.
Right. Yeah, companioned is the word that I sometimes use, because you're guided, yes, but also companioned in the journey for healing.
Absolutely.
And that feels very different.
Shamans have a saying that we walk with you.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
It's like, here, let's hold hands.
And we're walking away. And to be honest, in my whole journey in my work, I don't think that you can guide somebody where you haven't been. It's just, and so for doctors and folks that are doing it, a little bit differently, I don't know how that is.
I love having this conversation because, and look, we're very supportive of the educational work that everybody's doing.
Sure.
Like I'm an advocate. We're advocates.
Definitely.
The reality is that many of those programs are not experiential.
Yes.
Okay. They're academic in nature, right? Which is good. It's good.
It's got a place.
I was talking to a man, and he's with a medical university on the West Coast, and he was fascinated by kind of the way we work. Okay, the way we teach, what we teach, and we were having a discussion, and he was very, very knowledgeable about this, about the neuroscience, about the medical aspects, about the psychological aspects, right? And I said to him, hey, question, have you been with any of these medicines personally? He was like, oh no. I said, okay, well then how do you know what the person is experiencing? He said, I don't. Like, he's very honest. He was like, I don't. Sure. I said, look, if you really want to be effective with this work,
you got to experience
be with the medicine in the same context that you're going to take people, and then you'll know, right? Whether it's clinical, whether it's traditional, whatever flavor appeals to you. But much to your point, you can't take somebody somewhere that you haven't been.
Yeah. I just don't think, and I don't care how smart you are. You just, it's a different.
It's almost like the person who is teaching someone how to lose weight and get into really good shape.
Yeah.
That has never had to do that for themselves. Maybe they were fit their entire life, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's different. Yeah. So in terms of being guided, like we're talking about being a guide and going through, but in terms of living a guided life, is there anything else that you want to say about that? Because I think that can get confusing for people. Like when you heard the voice super clear, like heal yourself, those kinds of experiences. And you just also touched on, whatever flavor appeals to you. I think of, if it doesn't appeal to you, there's another flavor. So,
Right.
if there's a different medicine, all the medicine, in my opinion, all medicine, the medicine is love. So
Yeah.
if you find your
Yeah.
way to love, that feels guided to me.
That's right. So, so like you really raise a good question, Kelli. What is guidance?
Right. That's
Like what it
we're
like
like,
let's
what
talk
is
about
it?
that for a
Yeah, like what
second.
is
Like
that?
what is guidance? Okay.
Right.
I believe
Mm-hmm.
that guidance comes in a number of different forms. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I believe that we can be guided by our higher self,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
our soul, right? Our
Sure.
soul,
Right.
right? And you hear the term being soul directed,
Mm-hmm.
used in a spiritual community. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be our soul kind of guiding us into situations, our higher self. We can be guided by our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We can receive guidance from spirit guides.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. A whole lot of different spirit guides, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can receive guidance from what I call the ascended masters.
Yes. Right.
Okay, so for example, Buddha Christ energy,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
that guidance. The purest form of guidance is divine
Mm-hmm.
energy, divine love,
Mm-hmm.
which exists within us.
Yeah.
We carry it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I believe and and I believe that our guidance comes from a combination of all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to feel
Yeah.
guided,
Yeah.
we have to slow ourselves down and we have to pay attention to what's going on within us and around us. And this great, I don't know if you ever saw the movie. I love this analogy, but there was a movie called Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey in it.
Yeah.
Okay, and he was a weatherman, and everything started falling apart in his life, and he
Yeah.
gets called to some office, and Morgan Freeman is playing God.
God. Right.
Oh, remember that movie? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, his life turns into a complete train wreck, and he's driving down the road, and it's raining, and there's a big lake, over here, and he's pounding on the steering wheel. God, just give me a sign, right? And this big panel truck pulls out in front of him, and it's got all these old road signs. It says danger, detour, don't go that way, hazard, right? And he goes to pass the truck, and he skids off the road and ends up in the lake. Now he wakes up and he's standing on the water with Morgan Freeman, God.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, why didn't you give any guidance? And God said, are you kidding me? I gave you a whole truckload.
Right.
I gave you signs. You just didn't pay attention.
Right.
Okay.
So the slow down.
That's right.
Pay
Slow
attention.
down.
Yeah.
I'll share this story with you. I was living in Northern Cal, and I was kind of at this inflection point. I wasn't sure where I was going or what I was doing. I had led a very nomadic life for many years. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I was renting this place in Mill Valley, a beautiful area. And one morning I wake up and I hear the call of a red-tailed hawk. And that's one of the spirit animals I connect with. Mm-hmm. And I always know there's a message there. So I asked the question. I learned to kind of trust where I'm being guided. Okay. So right. I was like, okay, what's the message? And I heard the word Atlanta. Now I hadn't been back to Atlanta for 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? Nah, I just didn't pay attention to it. Next morning, the hawk comes, calls, and Atlanta was even louder. And this happened a few times. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to go back to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Now, I originally felt like I was going back to Atlanta to reconnect with my family members, my mm-hmm. sisters, maybe a couple of friends. Okay. Sure. Mm-hmm. Hop on a flight, come to Atlanta. I rented a car. I was driving to my sister's house, and a friend of mine here in Atlanta called me, and she asked me if I could take one. She said, I heard you're coming to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. While you're here, would you mind working on one of my clients? I can't handle him anymore. Mm-hmm. I was like, sure, I'll help out. Well, that was the beginning of an unfolding that ultimately led me into the life that I'm living now here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just I didn't blindly, I very intentionally said, okay, I'm going to listen. I don't know what's there. I think I know. And by the way, that was part of it, but there was so much more.
Right.
So when we, whether it's through an animal spirit guide, ascended masters, other spirit guides, people, are very attracted to the angelic realm, right?
Sure.
Okay. Whether it's our higher self, whether it's our ancestors.
Right.
If we listen and we trust. We have to trust. Okay.
Yeah.
And the expression that I like to use is trust your knowing. Mm-hmm. We all have this inner knowing. Mm-hmm. Right. And when we feel that and we trust it, even though it might fly in the face of everything logical,
right,
amazing things happen.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're always working with trust. I feel like everything I do personally, professionally, is always working with that trust. So that's, really trusting it.
So the question connected to trust is, what are you afraid of?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So what I'm really working with is fear. Yes.
It's fear. Right. So what are you afraid of?
Right. Yes. And the plant medicine, or whatever rings your bell, the plant medicine can really clear a pathway, I think.
It's amazing. So I was sitting one night, I had been working with somebody with plant medicine, and it was about the last 15 minutes, and that person was doing great. And I was just kind of sitting and I was talking to the medicine, right? Mm-hmm. And I asked the medicine a question. I said, can you tell me how to explain what you do in very easy to understand terms that anyone can understand? And this little kind of playful energy pops up, almost like the Lucky Charms leprechaun. Right? Okay. It says, oh, just tell the humans that we take them out of their human mind and we show them their human mind in a non-human way. I was like, wow. Okay. And then I saw a box.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me that we're inside this box trying to figure out the box. Mm-hmm. And all we can see is what's inside the box through the lens of our conditioning.
Correct.
It's not until we're outside of the box that we can see the box, see ourselves in the box, and see the relationship of ourselves, the box, to everything else.
Right.
Yeah. You see?
Yeah.
And when we kind of get out of the box, right? And we can look at our thoughts in a way to where it's like a higher, more expanded state of consciousness, of awareness. Yeah. Then we begin to see those thoughts, the origins of those thoughts, the relationships of those thoughts to everything in our life, that we have these aha moments.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful.
And that's what the medicines do.
Yeah. Which is, incredible. So is there anything else? I've loved our time and talking to you about, is there anything else that really nourishes your soul, since you're a person that gives back so much, teaching and working with people? What do you do to nourish your soul?
Oh, I am still that little boy who loves to go into the forest.
Yep.
Or swim in the rivers, or jump off the rocks, or go hiking. For me, it's nature based.
Yes.
It's nature based. And that, that really feeds me. Okay. Whenever I'm feeling, I'm human like anyone else, whenever I'm feeling, and we're pretty busy,
Yeah.
And when I get those feelings of being overwhelmed, it's like this indicator. It's like this sign that says, hey, Jeff, hit the pause button, go outside barefoot, just feel the energy of the earth, feel the sun. I tune into the elements, feel the sun, feel the air on your skin, smell it, look at all of the, the beauty. Okay.
Yes.
And that, that's so nourishing. The other things that I find really nourishing is to move my body.
Yeah.
I love the feeling of being in this amazing human form, like the senses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay. And and whatever flavor that is, I love music. Some people like music, some people, love to move their bodies, some people like nature, some people love to sit down and read a really amazing book.
Sure.
Okay. Some people like to watch a great movie. Whatever, for me, what feeds my soul the most is something that brings me back into the stillness that exists within me.
Right.
Because we always carry stillness and silence within us, right? And when we allow ourselves to touch that and be with it, that's feeding our soul.
Yes. Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm so grateful for your time because I know you are so busy, and I'm so glad to have this conversation with you.
Well, we love what we're doing, and we want to share what we're doing with as many people that it can help.
Of course.
And and it's truly a passion. And any opportunity, Kelly, anything you need, we're very supportive of the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We're all out here healing ourselves so that we can share the medicine. That's
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For your time.
Yeah. It's wonderful to see you.
Good to see you.